Okay, so
Hi.
this one's all on me for once. So, the thing I want to talk about today, it's going to actually, excuse me, damn, it is actually. You type it actually just because I said actually.
You keep saying it, so it seems important to what you're about to say.
No, a conversation that we had this morning. Now, the only thing that worries me about this, Keifer, is
I talked to you this morning?
no, you were born in 1996, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's just see what you remember, and maybe there's some differences of what I'm going to talk about. But it does tie slightly to our conversation with Alan and Kim and the whole Pizza Hut thing. And this has a touch of Pizza Hut, but not so much about what we talked about the other day whenever we were actually working.
I can tell you right now, I am not going to remember anything from 1996. Probably up to
it would be later
2000.
than 96. Yeah,
Okay.
But I think you can probably share some sentiment here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a little trip down memory lane, which the reason I want to talk about this is you get on like Facebook or maybe X or I don't know. I'm so bad with TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
I just check our notifications and that's mostly it. Try to go around and see what some of our followers are doing and like it and be involved a little bit. But you get those posts up there that have like, I remember the 90s or the 2000s or the 80s, and you get these little kind of like nostalgic meme bubbles of things that went on that you maybe forget about or maybe don't think about until you see something like that, right?
Oh, we're going down history of memes?
No.
Oh, dang.
I'm just saying this is kind of like what I just had a moment that made me realize why I like looking at those things, but it doesn't really alter my frame of mind.
Yeah.
I'm also somebody that rarely sits around and really wants to go back in time. Like I enjoy that, like nostalgia is a thing that we have to. I don't really need these on.
You look cool.
I know, but I don't want to look too cool. I don't want to overshadow you. I prefer to only wear my sunglasses when you're also wearing them. So
You can put them on and I can take my sweater off. I have a pretty cool shirt on, but go on.
Okay. But my point is, like, I occasionally like to reminisce. I think everybody does. And I'm also kind of trying to gauge on where this really happens for people because maybe it is a certain point in age wherever you start to really want to re-experience things versus just reminiscing about them and having fond memories about them. I think it's a fine line. But I actually had a moment where I really wanted to go back in time and experience something that used to be, I guess, what I would call common practice. Versus most of the time I just think back on it and just think, never mind, we got to move forward.
Yeah.
I don't really get stuck there. And then also, I have another point about this, but maybe I won't jump into that just yet, kind of giving some pretense to it. But so, the conversation kind of started around, this morning we were kind of trying to remember who all had managed the Pizza Hut. And we had talked about this with Alan and Kim, at least when we worked there, everybody that had managed it. And we were trying to think who all had managed it. I knew Dave Merritt had managed it for quite a while before Kevin. Kevin was there as the assistant manager and then became manager. But I don't know who was before Dave Merritt.
I could not tell you.
I know. I would have to. There was somebody there that I could have asked that probably would have remembered, but he was busy, so I didn't get a chance to ask. But where this conversation led us, so we were kind of talking about that, and then we got to talking about, and you might remember this, especially being a Star Wars fan, but we were just kind of talking about old Pizza Hut in general. And, sometimes these memes even have, like, the old Pizza Huts on there. Like, do you remember Pizza Hut from this time frame where they had, like, the chandeliers? And, the stained glass and the buffet and just kind of the way the whole thing was laid out. That I see a lot, and I remember it, but this conversation really got my wheels turning on it, more so experiencing it than just seeing the videos. But do you remember... like one example that we were talking about is, do you remember the Star Wars cup lids whenever episode 1 came out?
Like with Jar Jar?
There was
like the
Jar
head of Jar Jar.
There was Yoda.
Anakin.
I think so with the pod racer.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like Mace Windu might have been like one of the only like human characters other than Anakin, but I mean he had all his stuff on. So Yoda.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so we kind of talked about some of that, like, and I remember specifically like we just kind of got to talk about how cool Pizza Hut was when we were growing up. And, like, you know, towards the end of it, you kind of got the same feeling you get about all fast food. You're just kind of like, I mean, it's okay. But, like, it got me thinking about a time where, like, Pizza Hut was good. You didn't feel guilty for going there and eating. In fact, you look forward to being able to eat there. And just kind of the stuff around Pizza Hut, like those cup lids or, like...
The I Spy books. I think there comes a point where when you're young, like, you get to go do something. Like, no, your family's kind of hanging out because they're not cooking. You know, everybody's having a good time. There's stuff for you to do, and you can just eat as much pizza as you want. There comes a time where, like, you kind of outgrow the I Spy books, the lids, you know. And you, like, start to eat probably less or there's less. You're not having as much fun eating because... Like, you're filling up now. You're not just a kid running back and forth. I think it's just an age thing.
Right, yeah.
Where you just grow out of it.
I could see that. Yeah. I just remember, like, my parents were always like, you know, this is good. You look forward to it and feel bad. Now, we're talking about a time where money was pretty decent, too. So, like, everybody probably didn't feel like they were getting ripped off at their local Pizza Hut anymore just because things were a little bit more affordable back then with those small pockets of time. But do you remember they had the Casper the Friendly Ghost toys, and you could get Casper and all the uncles
at Pizza Hut?
Yeah, that was going on for a while. I ended up getting them all. It took a while, but you ended up getting them all, and they didn't really do much, but they were kind of cool. You know, they just like little plastic toys. You might have been able to maybe move their arms. I can't remember. That was cool. I was trying to think of some other cool things you could get at Pizza Hut, but you could also. I'm trying to think, like the Book It program.
Where you got the small pizza.
After you completed like 4 book reports or whatever. You get those and were excited about being able to do that. But it made me think about where it took me back to, and this is kind of where I got stuck. And today I was kind of like, you know what, if I actually could really truthfully turn back time, like it would be cool to go experience what I call a pretty typical Friday night. I would say around middle schooly age, like 4th, 5th, 6th grade probably. Another thing that they had that was off the chain, the original PlayStation demo disc. You don't maybe remember them giving them out?
I remember... Like we'd go, I don't know if it's Pizza Hut or not, but it'd be like a smaller disc. It wouldn't be like the size of like a DVD or CD. We'd go someplace and get like a smaller disc. So I don't.
Were the GameCube discs?
They're like the same size, but I think that wasn't GameCube, and I think it was pre. I know computer games would come small sometimes.
Yeah, or like way back in the day, like on floppy drives.
No, it wasn't a floppy drive. Was it full size?
PlayStation was. Originally. I don't know. PlayStation 2 was. PlayStation 3 was. I don't know about the PS1. I think.
No, I was my Xbox before.
Yeah. So, and PlayStation 1 is. I don't know. It's like they revamped PlayStation and made it a little bit lighter and more portable. And there were some games that weren't available on PlayStation, but were available on PlayStation 1. But the PlayStation 1, I think, played all PlayStation games.
I think so.
If I remember right.
Yeah.
But anyway, they did give out this demo disc for the PlayStation shortly after the PlayStation released. And on that demo, we were talking about this, like, I think there was, like, I can't remember how many total games, but I remember some of them that were on there, and, like, you could play it for X amount of time, or like there might only be like one level, but like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was on there.
Nice.
There was like a level of Spyro, the dragon. You could play like so much of Metal Gear Solid.
Weird.
Was on there. I was trying to remember what else we did. Tony Hawk, Metal Gear Solid, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot. I think there was a level or two of Crash Bandicoot on it. And then like the Star Wars lids, Pizza Hut had like 4 characters, KFC had like 4 characters, and Taco Bell had like 4 characters, if I remember right. So in order to collect them all, you had to go to all 3 of Pepsi's. Yeah, actually, if you pull it up, I'll tell you exactly.
Be Reddit?
Yep, that's them.
Whoa, weird.
Yep. Oh, Gran Turismo, yeah, that's right. Ape Escape, I forgot all about Ape Escape.
Tomb Raider?
Yep, Tomb Raider. There was, yep. You got Final Fantasy, whatever number that is, 8 maybe. I remember that. Yep, those were them. You get them from Pizza Hut. I forgot they did 2 discs.
I had no idea. Do you have both of them? And you could win $500,000?
Yeah. What? There's the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater one.
Yeah. That game was sick.
I'm trying to think where Metal Gear Solid was. I don't see it on there, but I seem to recall them putting that out. But yeah, those were the discs. I kind of forgot there was a blue and a green one. I thought there was just one.
Oh, somebody did a video about it a year ago.
Probably.
About the demo discs. That's cool.
It was really cool. I believe, if I remember correctly, man, I wonder what year they did that. Doesn't really matter. I believe I had the demo disc before I had gotten a PlayStation. Oh. If I remember right. And then like I got a PlayStation for Christmas shortly after that.
Yeah.
So I was able to play it. I remember like holding on to it, being like, if I ever get one, I'll play it.
Yeah.
And then when I did get one, it was like, hey, I still got those demo discs, you know. And then it was exciting to get home from my grandma's where I received it and then put those in. But I can't remember what you had to do to get them.
That's such a cool idea. I wish that you could do something like that now, but there's just no way with.
Digital download mostly. I mean, I don't want to get into that. It's a good conversation for Tim sometime to talk about buying actual discs or games versus doing everything via download. But
even like the disc you buy now, like you still have to download. So I don't.
It still has to.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Update, yeah,
it's stupid. You can't just pop a game in anymore.
Nope. There's too much data in them now.
Still stupid.
But what that all got me thinking about when we were talking about it was like in that time period of my life, like Friday night was get off school. Mm-hmm. Some of those years you'd walk home, sometimes with your buddies so far, and then end up walking home by yourself. And then you'd get home, and typically on a Friday, you would still I would still watch whatever was on Cartoon Network, typically like Toonami stuff.
Yeah.
So like a lot of Dragon Ball and Big O and Tenchi Muyo and, I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh maybe. Just like the afternoon anime stuff. Play with my toys. And then most Friday nights, what you did was or at least at my house, and like I said, based on these memes that I'm seeing, I think a lot of people had similar experiences in the late 90s and early 2000s. But you would you'd order your pizza, and then go down to the video store and rent 2 or 3 movies.
Yeah.
Go pick up your Pizza Hut, which you're always excited to have. Like, I remember one of my favorites was the Big New Yorker.
Oh, what was on that?
It was just whatever you wanted, but like it was a slightly different crust, and it was huge and flat, like New York style pizza. Hopefully you can find the original box. They kind of tried to bring it back here not too long ago, and it wasn't bad. So that's what they did here just not too long ago, a year and a half ago. But see if you can find the original Big New Yorker box. It was like green and white. That was the right logo somewhere on one of like right there up in the middle. Yep, there it is. Yep. That was the Big New Yorker, and it was just like an extra large pizza. And like I said, it's like flat hand tossed.
Yeah.
Dough.
God, pizza sounds good.
And then I know, especially like Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Now that we don't have one anymore, it's way more appealing than it used to be. Once in a blue moon, like for lunch, I'll go pick one up, and James and I will split one if it works out.
Second bite.
Yeah, sorry, I'll let you know next time that works out.
Yeah.
Not very often. But the remake wasn't bad either. I did like the remake.
Yeah.
Whenever we ordered it a couple times. But the original one was just great. And then eventually Stuffed Crust came out. Stuffed Crust was the bomb.
Awesome.
So you're always excited to get a Stuffed Crust pepperoni. But
I like the Stuffed Crust, especially when they put like the garlic butter.
Mm-hmm. Spray.
Yeah. Oh, we had
whenever we did it.
Yeah, it wasn't spray for us. Yeah. We had a based it on or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was just like, it was just awesome to physically. It's just one of those experiences, and I know I think every generation has those that they feel like the generation below them or even above them didn't really experience in the same way, unless it's their parents or whatever. But you have those experiences of like being excited to get Pizza Hut, which I'm sure most kids would never understand these days, just because it's so vastly viewed differently.
Yeah,
and, the quality is a lot different. And this is no offense to Pizza Hut, but it's to say it's the same as it was in around 2000 is not really true.
Well, I mean, you got to think about kids now. They're getting dopamine hits from screens constantly. They aren't like patiently waiting for like an exciting thing that like you're really looking forward to.
Yeah, and like now, you just like, I mean it's similar, but to me it's not near the same experience of like getting in the car with your mom or dad. It was almost always my mom and I that would do this too.
Well, you're not spending time in a video store looking,
Yes, and picking stuff out, and like you might go down there on an idea of a movie you want to rent that is out, but it might not be there.
Yeah.
They might have like 3 or 4 copies of it, and if all 3 or 4, if it's recent enough, will be out, so then you then just continue to look at the selection.
Yeah, and you never knew if it was going to be an awesome movie or if it was going to be bad. And that was fun.
Yeah.
We didn't go to the video store. I don't remember doing that, but Trails Inn used to have a movie selection, and it was $2 movies, and all of them were bad, but my dad and I would always go and we'd buy like 3 of them, and we'd just like spend all night sitting at the table watching these shitty movies.
Yeah, that's good too. Like the dollar bin. Those are kind of still around, but not really.
Yeah, but those are like better movies. So there's older.
They're just on a format hardly anybody uses anymore. I know what you're saying.
These are all like C movies,
right? Yeah. Yeah, or sometimes they're like straight to TV movies that they went ahead and made a VHS or a DVD of. Yeah.
I don't know if any of these were ever straight to.
No, you don't think so.
Like, probably the closest were a couple of sci-fi movies. Yeah. And those 2000 sci-fi movies sucked.
Yeah. Or some of them were straight to VHS. You know what I mean? That's the only place it was. They never put it in a movie theater, but...
Not to get too far off topic of Pizza Hut and this, did you ever get the orange McDonald's VHSs?
Yes.
Yeah, we still have those.
Yeah.
They're out of McDonald's Playhouse.
Yep, and then Nickelodeon kind of nipped it and made all their movies orange, too.
We have those, like Rugrats and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to think there was some other movies out there. Like, I remember Red Ones sometimes. There was other people that would color the VHS tape.
Yeah.
And it was always like... You always felt like it was super cool.
Yeah, just because different.
Just because it was different, yeah. But I just, like, going to the movie store, and eventually they got to where you could also rent video games, which I'll kind of bridge this in. But, 4th, 5th, and 6th, at that age, so what, you're probably talking about 10, 11, 12, maybe 13, back at that time. And... the thing that I remember most is, like, they started getting video games in, and sometimes you would rent those. I feel like that picked up a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But, like, the thing about the movie store that was so cool is the selection. So, like, it seemed like what you would generally do is you would grab something new release. There's always the new release wall. But then, like, all the other aisles were usually older movies.
Yeah.
And so it felt like you were usually picking out at least one new release and 1 or 2 older movies. And, that was basically your Friday night. Like you said, you'd just sit there and watch those movies and eat your pizza.
Yeah.
And it just, like, looking back on it, like, I guess it didn't seem like much then. But, like I said, today I finally hit the point where it was like, I would like to be able to do that one more time if there was a way to do it, And I normally don't feel that way so much.
Yeah. I didn't... My Friday nights were mostly like video games with friends. And I still play with my friends, video games and stuff, like when I can. Because I'd rather, like, in the evening, if it's like just me at home, I'm not going to put on a movie or something. I'm just going to play video games because I enjoy that more.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't really get nostalgic for that because I'm still doing what I've been doing the past 15 years.
Yeah. So that was, actually, it's good you bring it up because that's my next segue. Because then the next memes become, you got pizza and like 2 or 3 friends over, and you're not doing it so much with your parents once you hit about 14, 15, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there, kind of like just after the period that I just described.
Yeah.
You're doing it with your friends, so it was like super excited to go out and get like Surge. And do you remember Surge?
No.
Not really. Or just soda.
Volt came out around that time for us, and that was kind of big.
Yeah.
Volt, and then like the Oreos that were like puffy.
Mm-hmm.
Forget what those are called.
They're doing those again.
Are they?
Yeah, the soft cake ones.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't think I'd like them if I probably had one today.
Yeah. Do you remember like Pepsi Blue?
Yeah.
Look it up real quick.
Maybe.
It was fucking nasty. But like when you were a kid, like it looked cool, so you convinced yourself that it was good.
No.
The one up there in the left is the original one. I don't remember the updated one. Oh yeah, Pepsi
I think
Blue.
Code Red probably came out.
Oh yeah. Code Red's been around a lot longer than you probably think.
Yeah, that's why I'm. No, May 2001. So yeah.
Yeah, but isn't it hard to believe it's already been around that long?
No.
When LimeWire come out, it wasn't much longer, but Code Red was like kind of their first change up. I feel like
LimeWire.
Code Red, LimeWire came afterwards. I'd just
Oh.
be curious to know. It's LiveWire, the orange one.
2003, 2000.
2 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first place I remember getting
I remember LiveWire.
Yeah, the first place I remember getting Code Red was over, and I'm trying to think what was there. It seemed like they made sandwiches. It was over at Rockport in that little building that has been a million different things right there across from the food country, kind of catty-cornered.
Mm-hmm.
Like, R&L had their meat there for a long time. There was somebody that was running like a little
deli
sandwich shop.
Don't remember
in
that.
there, and they had it on Fountain. That was the first place I really remember getting it, and it was delicious.
Where Rockport Telephone Midwest Data here in town, across from Casey's. Do you remember when that was a restaurant?
Multiple restaurants.
Yeah.
Originally, do you remember it being Seis Hombres?
I don't ever remember names. I just remember going there.
Yeah.
Because they had like the little window.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that, and then like, I want to say like blue, greenish, like booths and
stained
stuff.
glass. Yeah. Well, yeah, and then like there was stained glass originally.
Yeah.
That so when it was like Seis Hombres, which was Seven Brothers.
Yeah.
They had like the Seis Hombres like little mural on the wall when you walked in before you walked around to the booths or whatever. And then it was called 10th Street.
10th Street, that's probably what I remember.
Yeah.
Because I never liked the smell of it, but I always liked their spaghetti.
Yeah.
Like the smell of the place in general.
Yeah. And then the last thing that it was, I'm pretty certain, was there was a Greek guy that I believe was in some way or shape or form related to, I can't even think of his name, but the guy that runs A&G.
Yeah.
That put together, and his name was Danny, and I think that was the name of the restaurant. I think it was called Danny's. Something like that. That's the last thing I remember it being.
Maybe that's what it was then. Because I remember getting spaghetti with meat sauce all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, this shit lit, dog. I said that at like 6.
Did you?
Yeah, before everybody else did. It was neat.
I bet you did. But yeah, I remember going there a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, at all three, and I do remember all 3 different entities that were there.
Do you think you would feel like that need to relive like that night if you grew up in like a city or something? In like a big city, like probably bigger than Kansas City.
Well, I guess I don't know. I feel like people, whether they're from rural places or city places, are still seeing these nostalgic memes, and it must have been somewhat similar for a lot of people over a lot of different areas.
Yeah, but it's got to be like a totally different perspective of probably why.
Yeah, so I guess what I would liken it to, like, because everything we've talked about was stuff that you did in your community, really.
Yeah.
So to me, it probably is similar to how, like, when we were talking to Johnny about how things worked whenever he was young, and it's just like these were things that you just did inside your community.
Yeah.
Versus like, I remember going to St. Joe for stuff and being super excited to go into like Hastings or Record Warehouse.
Yeah.
Any of those kind of oddball places that my parents would go.
I remember when they first built Cheddar's down there. They had a baked spazania.
Uh-huh.
And it was like this giant thing of like spaghetti and lasagna that would like pretty much put me in a coma. And I would just down it. The shit was so good.
I wish I could remember what was up there before they developed all of it, because I remember that, like, it would be interesting to know what year it was they did all that up there. But I can remember like all that stuff coming in and everybody being blown away that it was like such an expansion.
Yeah.
2005.
Is that the mall?
The shops at North Village.
Yeah.
Yeah, developed in 2005. So, hell, I was 15 when they started doing that. So, I wish I could remember. Like, I remember, like, Ryan's was up there. The Ryan's Buffet.
Yeah, that was, like, kind of the farthest out other than gas stations, I think.
Pretty much. Like, there really wasn't a whole lot up there back then.
Yeah,
my parents... I remember better.
My parents hated taking us there.
Where?
To Ryan's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I loved it. But I guess they couldn't ever, like, pass... health inspections, and they'd like watch people sneeze and shit.
I know, but that's, Golden Corrals and all that stuff were like that back then. People just went nutso over those places.
I cannot get McKinley to go to a Golden Corral with me.
There used to be one in Maryville.
Well,
yeah, whenever I was little, there was one we would go to in Maryville, and it was up there by Clinton Allen Monuments, where like the Domino's is now. There's a completely different building there, and it was a Golden Corral.
Is that one in St. Joe still open?
I don't think so, and Council Bluffs isn't anymore either. They're not, and like a lot of Ryan's are gone too. Well, the mega buffets are kind of.
The cost of food and everything shoots up. You can't do that. You can't do it, yeah. I would love to just go to another mega buffet.
I don't miss buffet much anymore. That's one thing that I can't stand, but no, I think so, like, back to kind of playing, the one thing that I will tell you about playing video games back then, though, it really meant something to have 2 or 3 of your friends over, and you physically had to be sitting there playing the same system together.
Yep, the original Xbox playing Halo.
Yeah.
That was the best.
There's a couple that stick out for me. Like anything on Nintendo 64, because Nintendo 64 was the first thing that was more than 2 players.
Yeah.
Which was wild, even though you were on a TV with like the screen split into quarters. And like if you played like GoldenEye or Mario Kart or whatever, like doing it now, like I can't. It's so hard to play stuff like that now, because it's like, Jesus Christ, I can't see nothing. But back in the day, it was like you were just blown away, and you could literally just focus on the one little spot that you were supposed to. But you get a whole pizza to yourselves generally, or maybe 2, depending on how many of you there were. You get like a couple 2-liter bottles of soda or whatever, and just hang out in a room, especially in winter. Like, that was really how
Snow days were the best with everybody coming over.
Yeah. It's really how you pass time, though. I remember, like, it's like sometimes we'll talk about, like, Jamie's like, well, all these, like, sometimes I don't want him just playing video games. And it's like, man, I don't know. I played video games all winter pretty much. Because, we still go outside and dick around in the snow some. But
yeah, the snow always bothered my asthma quite a bit. So, like, I spent a lot more time indoors watching scary movies like Katie and Boo, or like playing Xbox and stuff.
Yeah. The other one I remember that was a lot of fun that you can't even really do anymore, but Madden tournaments on PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
and like you could actually go in and set up a tournament, and everybody got a team, and like sometimes you have to play the computer. It'd always come down generally to you and your friends would have to play through the rest of the bracket, and sometimes that shit would take like all night.
Yeah, and then do you ever do that? I don't know if we just like figured it out, but you could like coach mode.
Yeah,
where you're not actually playing.
Yeah, the coaching. Franchise mode, and you could just select that you were the coach, and like it would give you the option to like you could like sim it all, or like you could go in and like play parts of the games that you wanted to, and like it gave you all these options, or you could just call plays, and then you wouldn't have. Yeah, I do. Yeah, they still kind of have that. It's a little bit different than like you're probably like I kind of remember that coming out like Madden 2006, 7. Somewhere in there. I
don't think it was Madden. I think it was NCAA when they got that. Yeah. We were doing that.
Gotcha.
Because we were a little bit older. So it probably would have been after 2006, maybe like 8 or 9.
Yeah. I do know what you're talking about, though. You could just be a coach.
Yeah.
And then all you did was like mess with your roster and you just, trade people. Level people up, I think.
Yeah, I think we'd all like pick like the same team, and then I'm trying to remember. I think we would like all be at home and like over the headsets and be like, all right, I traded this, and we'd see how like the seasons would turn out for everybody.
Yeah,
because you could always go to somebody's house and like look at it to like, verify.
Yeah.
So we'd always just like see who like took the same team but changed so much, and that was fun for us.
Yeah. But it just made me think really hard about like, I always think back on those things, but like, it's just the first time, and I don't know, maybe that was kind of my question to you. Like, I've always told myself like, I don't ever really want to go back.
Yeah.
But like, for some reason this morning thinking about it made me kind of want to, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you ever think about really wanting to go back, or do you just... See, so now I'm wondering if it's just because I'm almost 35.
One of the things I think about is I kind of get to do everything that like I want to do, like right now in my present life.
Yeah.
So I feel like since I have the freedom to, I'm gonna spend Friday night playing Xbox Online. I don't have anything to do, or you know what, I'm gonna go to Kansas City McKinley and I are going to Kansas City or something, like we can do that pretty much anytime so I think I don't miss anything because I have that freedom to do stuff.
Yeah, that might be true because largely I largely feel that way too for the most part. Now there's some difference since we've had kids, but
so that was my second part is you having kids, you may not like want to go back and like actually experience it for yourself, but since you had those experiences, maybe in like your head you want to have that experience for your kids and yourself like your parents had with you. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think about this a lot, which is this was whenever I was kind of giving you the precursor to this was the part that I told you I didn't want to bring up until we got to this point in the conversation. But so I've thought many a times, like, particularly, like, for instance, like, whenever we go to the dentist and then we go over to Entertain Mart, which is a lot like whenever we went to St. Joe for something that we needed, and then we would go over to Hastings.
Yeah.
And it makes me remember, that's a time that I feel like things that we did back then are really overlapping with my kids. But, you always have these I feel like you always have these second guess thoughts about like, am I doing enough with my kids? Am I doing things that my kids are going to remember? And then whenever you start thinking about like that trip, or even whenever I start thinking about like going to the movie store with my mom and all that stuff, like, I guess it gives me some confidence that I am doing things that they'll eventually look back on and think fondly of. But like, because you can't experience it, can't have the same experience that your kids having. You don't always absolutely know that that's how the outcome's going to be.
True.
But there's like certain little overlap things like that they almost feel deja vu-y.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That make you realize, okay, well, I think that, when Simon gets older, he's going to remember doing these things, and he'll think as fondly of it as I did.
Yeah.
In the same situation.
True.
So I guess it gives me hope that, like, and for anybody out there, that, like, sometimes just doing whatever needs to be done is still going to generate some type of memory.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know.
Like, it doesn't have to be glamorous.
Correct, yeah. Because you see, and this isn't a knock on anybody that has, divorced parents or something. But, like, and I understand, like, the time management is so much different between, like whenever you're split home.
Yeah, that's
versus whenever you're in a home that's still together. And so sometimes being a parent of a child where you're together all the time and the family's together all the time, it really feels like you're just doing mundane stuff because you have such a large stretch of time together all the time. And I know that split homes, like a lot of times they want to really maximize the time with their kids because they are sharing time. It's all shared time. Then they do all these things that you just look at it, it's like, oh my God, how do they have enough time to do all this stuff?
Yeah.
And it starts to make you feel a little bit, I think, at least it does to me, it just starts to make me feel guilty as a parent a little bit. Like I'm not doing enough exciting things. But then also part of me thinks like, I didn't do a lot of that growing up either. And I don't ever look back and think, man, I wish my parents would have taken me on more vacations.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't register that way with me. But then I feel guilty that I'm not taking my kids on more vacations, for instance, or more big event type things.
But like,
did you guys go on vacation a lot when you were growing up?
Before I remember anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then by the time I was getting older to remember, like Dad and Keeson would go and do stuff, or then like Mom would like take me to like a water park or something.
Yeah.
Like when they would be off.
Yeah.
Wherever, but it's different to like doing the vacations and like the big stuff, because that kind of takes away like the time for maybe a child to get like super interested in something. Like think about how Simon's like so invested in Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
If he knew like every summer you guys were going to go to Disney and then to another place, like 2 big vacations during the summer, do you think he'd really care about Camp Geiger or doing everything that much?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know, but
I don't think you're like taking anything away from a child, but maybe giving them something. You're letting them choose for themselves something to look forward to, other than like making a family trip and then like, hey, we're going to be doing all this stuff, so they get excited for that.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I think it's all just perspective.
Yeah, it probably is. Because I can count mostly on, definitely less than 2 hands, if I'm remembering everything pretty much correctly, which I think I am, how many, like, honest to God, like, trips we took.
Yeah.
I got to go to New York with my dad, and that was just me and Dad because Evan was little.
Yeah.
Like, he was 3, probably. So Mom never really cared much for travel either, which didn't help, you know. But so she was just like, no, I'll stay home with Evan. I've got no need to go to New York.
Yeah.
And we were visiting some of Dad's Navy friends that he hadn't seen in a while. But I remember doing that. We went to Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse and did all that stuff, like Rapid City and all that stuff. I remember going up there north of Des Moines where like you could see the Thomas the Tank Engine train, which we took Simon and Danica to one time
Is
later.
that Newton area?
It's like Boonville. Look it up. I probably don't even have Boonville quite right. I mean, it's that direction maybe, but.
Oh, Boone and Scenic Railway.
But up there in that same area, there was or is like this huge living history farm thing where like they left it kind of how it was back in like the, I don't know, 1800s. And you could walk around like this giant farm property and they have like houses still set up the way they used to be, and barns, and we went through all that, and that's one other trip I remember taking. And then we used to go to Arkansas to see my grandpa who lived down there. He lived down in Hot Springs. I remember doing that a few times when I was pretty little. In fact, one of my earliest memories, I think, is down there. And the problem is, like, I used to remember it so much better than I do now, and now it's just kind of colors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can still kind of remember everybody sitting on like a screened-in porch in a big circle. God, I had to have been 3 probably.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I remember going maybe one other time when I was like 4 or 5, something like that. But then we went a few times when I was in like junior high or first part of high school. I'm trying to think if there was. I don't know that I'm missing any other real trips. Like that might have been most of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We definitely didn't go every year to something.
Yeah, I don't know if I would with kids. Even if we had kids right now, like the thought of taking small kids to like Disney does not like get me excited. But like, even if we had small kids, like McKinley and I taking a trip to Disney without them, that would excite me.
It's like, yeah, but then you're like Jim Gaffigan's stuff about like, he goes, there are some people there that don't take their kids to Disney, and those are weird. Like, he's like, there's, he goes, you know, like, there's even people staying around going, my entire, he's like, I've got an entire Batman living room, okay? But the people that go to Disney without kids, they're weird.
Well,
I
mean, I'd rather ride roller coasters and drink than wait in line for ice cream every 10 minutes.
Yeah. We've talked about doing the Disney thing. Well, we haven't got it accomplished. We'll probably, I don't know. I hear Florida is better, but here California is good too. And
Florida's bigger.
Yeah, but like our sister-in-laws live in California, so it only makes sense to couple that one maybe.
Yeah, make everything about them instead of your family.
I know. I was trying to think what else kind of. I didn't want to get too far past like. I didn't want to get too far into like when you could start driving necessarily, but just thinking about those things that we did like in the early 2000s that.
Yeah,
you're kind of still doing these things, just in a completely different kind of rendition.
If I were to like feel nostalgic or want to go back, I'd be driving.
Yeah.
By those times, you know, just like David Garrett and I with cigars and like raccoon hunting and stuff, just walking through the forest, talking shit, smoking cigars. I don't know.
Yeah.
Those were pretty fun times.
Yeah.
Wild times, things we did.
Yeah.
Legally, I can't talk about it.
Well, like when we got a little older, before we could drive, but what you would do is you would go ahead and go downtown, but you have to walk downtown, and then hope that somebody that could drive would pick you up.
Yeah.
And if not, you just kind of hung out wherever. You walk up and down the street instead of drive up and down the street and stop and talk to people.
I do remember.
Or we'd come up here and dick around, break in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd do that too.
Yeah.
I remember one night Caitlin Higgins was babysitting us, and she took us downtown here in Tarkio.
Nice.
And we were hanging out, and like the older kids are all. I was like pretty little. I was like maybe second grade most, and like kids were smoking and stuff, and they were playing with condoms.
Was she old enough to drive?
I don't know.
I mean, she lived on Main Street, so you wouldn't.
I don't remember. No, I think we got her. One of her friends came, and we got in with them.
So I think in second grade.
I think it was just me that was getting babysat.
I bet we would have been junior high-ish.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
Because everybody was like blown away. I knew what a condom was because they were playing with condoms. They had it. I was like, oh, a condom. And this, I don't remember who it was. This girl was like, you don't know. You was like freaking out about it. And like the older guys were like, you know what it's for? I was like, yeah, for sex. Like you put it on.
Yeah. It's funny that you say. So I think I probably knew what a condom was in about the same age.
Yeah.
Probably like third grade. There was, put this in the Google engine real quick. I mean, since we're doing nostalgia, just a little off base, but no. To tell the truth, I think was the name of the dating game show.
1956?
No, there was a more recent rendition that was, I'm trying to think, it was on, what is the CW now?
AVTB? Tell the truth?
The symbol was like these fingers.
Yeah, right there.
overlapped. Is it there? I can't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it was. I don't think that was the guy that was the host. Well, John O'Hurley. There was another guy that did it. Maybe I'm thinking.
This would be 2000s, 2002.
Yeah, or like 90.
Whoa, I remember. I've seen that before.
Like this really, if I was in like third grade, 90, I don't know, 8, something like that.
Tell the truth, 90 to 91? Would it be reruns that you were seeing?
I don't know, man.
Mark Goodson?
What do you look like? I feel like the guy that was running it at the time was like kind of had like long, like blonde hair and a goatee. I mean, he looked kind of like a longer haired Mark McGrath, because that was the style.
Check in the YouTubes. Be NBC daytime.
No, later than this.
No, I think it would be the 2000s, dude.
Yeah, it would have been. I'm just looking for the guy that was. Yep, this is right.
Is it?
Yep.
So what about it? That guy?
It might have been him. I think there was another dude that was doing it besides Hurley, but they were talking about condoms on there, and we were out in the kitchen watching it with my mom. So this is me and would have been Morgan Kimmerling.
Yeah.
And my mom babysat her. We grew up a lot together from like, I would say first, second grade all the way to like until she could take care of herself.
Yeah.
And they were talking about stopping, like the whole scenario that they gave him was like, you went on the date, or you stopping for condoms, or you just saying goodbye or something. And we're like, what's condoms? What's condoms? My mom was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if we want to talk about that. Maybe go ask your dad. And so I ran in there, and Morgan was kind of like, oh, I don't know if we should ask your dad. Like, no, I'll ask Dad. So we walked in there and asked Dad. I was like, what's a condom? He goes on your penis for sex. Like, without even looking up, he just told me what it was. Okay. He went back in. Your mom goes, what'd he say? He said, goes on your penis for sex. Yep, that's right.
It's probably better to be straightforward with kids about that stuff, don't you think?
Yes, I think it's better to be. I mean, you don't have to be like graphic.
No.
But I think it's better to be upfront and honest when they start asking questions than bullshitting them. Now, I know what everybody's worry is that whatever they're doing is going to get blown like out of context, or they're going to bring it up at an inappropriate time.
Yeah.
If you're not being completely vulgar and inappropriate but being honest, like even if that happens, I mean, it might be slightly embarrassing. Probably more so for you as a parent than the kid.
I mean,
I think that's better than like
kids learning,
just completely lying and not being told anything or communicated anything.
Yeah, I think it's way worse than. It's better to do that than a kid like learning everything from porn.
Yeah, that's very dangerous.
And that's very
dangerous for young adults.
Yeah,
too.
it's very common.
Yes,
especially now with like how available it is. But like. Yeah. Sit down and talk to your kids so they learn it from you and what it actually is instead of...
Yeah, or like even like sometimes I know people cringe like if you have Friends or Seinfeld or any old daytime sitcom on where sex was kind of a...
theme?
I don't know if I want to say theme, but it was at least sprinkled in normal conversation fairly regularly. And it's not, again, when they talk about it, it's never really graphic, vulgar... in extreme detail. It's more like just something that it naturally goes on, so it's naturally talked about in those situations. And I think that like we live in such a society where like you feel like if a kid says something about something like that, you are going to be like basically accused of being some type of weirdo, or freak. But it's like, no, I mean, we're watching it on TV, and it is a natural part of life.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's okay for them to hear it, and if they want to know about it, they're going to ask. But otherwise, it's not like you have to sit down and explain it to them until they're ready to ask about it.
I mean, just like anything, if you don't, like, teach your kids when they ask something, they're going to figure it out a different way. And do you really want to choose the different way, especially if they're talking about, like, sex, or maybe they're wondering about, like, marijuana or something, or drinking? Like, would you rather them learn from you, or some guy that's just selling them something to make them money.
Or somebody that they're communicating with, like, online in a whether it be like we were talking about earlier, like some type of video game chat room or otherwise,
Since we're talking about kind of this, when kids, like real little kids, are talking about like their private parts, like, and to me, it seems it's better to be like, that's a penis, that's a vagina, and just be like very straightforward. But I know people like do like, that's your coo-hoo, or they make up names, and I feel like that's more damaging to a child than just being like, nope, everybody's got these, this is what it is,
Right, yeah. I remember like, and this might have been my own word at one time, but I remember like referring to my penis as my pee-man whenever I was little, but that's because it was a little thing that pee came out of,
Yeah.
And then like often a
Don't
vagina,
do that no more.
No. Often a vagina was referred to as like a muffy.
A muffy?
Yeah. Because it was like
a muff.
Well, yeah, but it was like a childery way of saying muff. Yeah. For a while, and then you got up to penis and vagina and stuff. But in my current household, because Jamie's a nurse, it has always been penis and vagina.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I think it's better.
Better, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes it not so like, I don't know, taboo. Like,
no, it's anatomically correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's like you might as well start there, because when you do actually get educated, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. You don't want your kid being the last one figuring out what a penis is. Also, probably don't want him to be the first.
Yeah.
Bad joke.
You don't and you don't want them being the ones teaching everybody either, if you can help it. That's probably not great either.
Yeah.
You don't want to be but I don't know, man. It just, I don't know. It was weird. So, like, I still want to have the other conversation we talked about having whenever we get a chance. But this morning, when I knew whenever I was going to be coming in here, I was just like, man, I kind of want to talk through that and see if, like, Keifer had kind of similar experiences.
And I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. I had similar experiences that were different, but I don't have the same feeling of ever wanting to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a new feeling for me, because I usually don't either. And I most certainly have not ever had a moment where I feel like I ever want to go back to like high school at all.
Yeah.
It would just be nice one time to be able to get in the car and experience going down to the movie store and getting Pizza Hut in 2000 and going home and having one of those Friday nights. But like you said, I experienced that with my children. Like now, every other, and actually we're due this Friday, but since Aaron's coming in later, we'll do it tomorrow. But like, every other Friday we go to Shenandoah, go shopping, go out to eat together, all that type of stuff. And I know that like that's a thing that for both Simon and Robbie that they're always going to remember that we did, I think, and have fond memories of that. It's just not always super exciting, but you don't always know what experience you're having. Like, and some of this stems from like everybody keeps throwing out these core memories, making core memories. Yeah. And they always put it around, just shit that it's like, you're probably right. I don't particularly like the phrase core memory that much.
Yeah.
I think every memory is important, and you can't really, the problem with that is your memory doesn't work in a way that where you get to choose what you do remember and don't. And you certainly don't get to choose it for your children.
Or how strong that memory is. I do the Power Ranger movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I watched that, it's a few years ago, and I actually just saw a picture of Igor Goo.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't like say anything, it's just like a picture of it. Like, they'd had some weird stuff back in the late 90s. And it was just him with all the kids like passing out the goo. Yeah. And I watched that. Watching it a couple years ago when I was living in Council Bluffs, I got super nostalgic, and I could taste SpaghettiOs in my mouth.
Yeah.
Like that sauce, like way in the back, because I'd always watched that and eat SpaghettiOs. And when I saw that picture, I got like like a different taste in my mouth. It was I wouldn't say it was strong, or I could say it was SpaghettiOs, but at the back of my tongue, back of my mouth, I could taste something.
I can, there's a couple different things. I do that with smells, oddly enough, more than taste. But there's one particular thing that I can always kind of remember. Around the same age time that we're talking, but in the summer, you spent all day at the pool.
Yeah.
Like you just woke up, dinked around until 1 o'clock hit, get on your bike and go to the pool, and you'd be at the pool all afternoon. And what I can always kind of like remember, and it's a few different scents, but like I can remember, like I can definitely remember being at the pool, remember the chlorine and all that stuff, and I can still like kind of smell that chlorine-y. But what I specifically remember is like getting back inside that evening, and you're used to being outside all day, like in the sun, so your skin's like just warm. And then, like, getting back in the air conditioning and being like, whoo, you know, like, I need to, and sometimes when you're a kid, you don't really care if you improve your situation that much. So, like, you just sit, like, in half-wet trunks and still with your shirt off.
It's
and
cold.
Just kind of shiver and wait on your supper at that point. Because you pretty much stay there until, like, somebody called or you'd been there long enough that you wanted supper. Yeah. So you could go home at, like, 4:30, 5 o'clock.
I do remember being at the pool. Like, my mom would take us and be there. But I do remember, like, Terry being like, whoever your mom called, time to head home over the speaker.
Yep. And what I can vividly remember taste-wise is I can remember sitting in the chair at a TV tray watching, I mean, many different things. Sometimes Star Wars pops into my mind. And, like, eating, and the flavor that I can remember is a fried cheeseburger with a little bit of salt and pepper and Worcestershire on it.
That sounds good right now.
Yes.
That sounds so good.
And then, like, once you would eat, you would realize then, man, I'm cold. I'm sitting here shivering.
Yeah.
I'm full. Blanket on. Fall asleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you wake up at, like, 8 in the evening and then be up late and then just do that all over again. But I can always remember the taste of that cheeseburger, and then just kind of like sitting there being slightly cold until I was full and I had a blanket on myself.
Fair. Ever since I was like little, like one of my favorite people in the entire world was my Aunt Sharon. Like even up to like today, awesome. But she lived in Seattle. But every time we'd go out, like when we weren't there, I'd like think about her like hanging out and playing with us and stuff. I could smell her house because they gardened like a lot, so they had like a very earthy smell. I can picture it right now, like if I think about it,
herbs
And I didn't go out there for a long time. When we were out there a couple years ago, we went to her house, the exact same smell, and it was just like this. Like super nice, relaxing feeling. I was like, yes, I've thought about this smell so much.
Yeah. There are random smells of stuff that remind me almost of the way my grandpa smelled, / like the way, and this is going to sound weird, but like he had his own bathroom down in the basement that had a little shower, and like that bathroom smelled kind of like his aftershave and his cheap cologne and like his Brute deodorant and stuff. And like he smoked and he drank whiskey. So like that smell is also part associated with him. So like when there's certain times that like somebody that has just smoked and had a drink, I can occasionally like get that.
Yeah.
Or once in a while, somebody will be wearing something that is kind of like the cheap cologne aftershave stuff that you wear, and I get a whiff of that, and it puts me in that basement, kind of.
It's going to sound weird. Like, I remember the taste of my dad's fingers, because do you know how, like, you do get that thing? My dad used to do that to me all the time.
Smoked.
And he'd, like, do that, and I always thought I loved it as a kid, and I remember in high school a girl did that to me, and that was, like, the only other time, like, a finger had ever been in my mouth or like around my mouth, and she did, and I was like, what the fuck? And I started thinking, I was like, the taste I associated other people's fingers, other than like myself obviously, was cigarettes. I thought everybody's fingers probably tasted like my dad's, but my dad's fingers were like stained yellow with smoked, so much. And I was just like, that is, because I didn't like the taste of her fingers. I remember that being like, that's weird that your hand tastes like that. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh no, my dad's just hardcore smoker. And that's what I equated fingers with my whole life.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I know, like, there will be one little thing, is because, like, whenever, like, you know, you get up close to the kids or whatever, like, give them a kiss on the cheek or just, like, tuck them in at night and maybe don't kiss them, but just kind of give them a hug or snuggle them up with them. I know that just because of how much they bitch, I know they're always going to remember and bitch
about the beard.
About my beard.
Yeah.
Yep. So, no, this was fun. I got to go. I guess we'll be back on here after a bit because I did actually talk to Aaron and he said yes and he asked for directions. So he's going to be here.
When?
7:00. So, but thanks for taking this little trip down memory lane, buddy. That was fun. This is kind of where I was hoping it would go.